Path of Exile. It's complex, dark, and often confusing. And it might be one of the most punishing yet gratifying gaming experiences you can have without leaving the comfort of your own living room. This game promises seemingly endless freedom, endless growth, and endless challenge. And yet, for all its difficulty, Path of Exile is designed to cater to every kind of player. Or so it claims. But can it? To find out, we shall be looking at Path of Exile through the lens of Richard Bartle's player types. As you may know, Bartle's theory breaks players down into 4 categories: achievers, explorers, socializers, and killers. Each has their own motivation, their own way of playing. In theory, a game that would satisfy each of these players would be a diverse paradise. In practice, we get Path of Exile. Let's start with the achievers, the players who view every game as a staircase to the top. These are the ones who want their time to mean something, ideally in a measurable form. A higher level, a better weapon, or a tougher boss beaten. For achievers, Path of Exile is a gold mine, or at least a mine, which may or may not contain gold in it. The game's skill tree looks like Tokyo's railroads map, and achievers should love it. Every point is a tangible mark of progress, something you can look back on and say, yeah, my character is actually getting stronger. And it doesn't stop there. Every season brings new leagues, where achievers can chase specific goals, showing off in ways that feel real and rewarding, if you can survive the grind. But here's where Path of Exile twists the knife. The sense of achievement is, a lot of the time, just a mirage. Achievers like a clear path to progression. Instead, they get a hamster's wheel in Path of Exile, which offers a path buried within 5 layers of RNG and a crafting system that's about as reliable as a subway station escalator. You could spend an entire evening working on a single item, only to end up with something about as powerful as a bendable straw. So, for achievers, PoE's got depth, yes, but it also feels like a perpetual state of indifference to smorgasbord of loot and skills and such. It's progress, sure, but after a while, it can just be there to grind your gears. Next up, the explorers, the players who enjoy games the way some people enjoy parks or new places, by wandering, experimenting, and finding obscure little details that other people probably missed or didn't put much thought into it. For these players, Path of Exile feels like a rare artifact, packed with complexity, strange interactions, and so many hidden mechanics that you'd think the developers were actively trying to conceal things. And maybe they are. Explorers in PoE can spend hours tinkering with builds, testing out skill combinations and navigating a web of systems that interact in surprising and often maddening ways. With every new league, the developers add a new mechanic to discover, a new system to pull apart, and probably a new way to die unexpectedly. But PoE's depth is also its downfall. The lore, for instance, is scattered across random dialogue and subtle environmental hints, like they wanted to make sure it didn't feel too accessible. The real irony here is that to actually piece together the story, you probably have to consult a forum or read a third-party wiki. And the game's many mechanics, they're often so arcane that self-discovery feels less like fun and more like a research paper. So, for explorers, Path of Exile does offer a world of mystery, if you are willing to go digging through the digital equivalent of dense, gothic library. For some, this is paradise. For others, it's just an elaborate scavenger hunt where half the clues are written in invisible ink. Then we have the socializers, the players who aren't here just for the game itself, but for the people they might meet along the way. The funny thing about Path of Exile is that while it's an online game, it doesn't really encourage much in the way of social interaction. Yes, there's trade chat, where socializers can occasionally find deals or haggle for gear. And there are guilds, which allows players to share resources and maybe once in a while have a conversation. But Path of Exile is built for solo play. It's a solitary trek through endless dungeons, occasionally broken up by the thrill of messaging 15 different players only to be ghosted by all of them. And that's the crux of it. Most of PoE's social scene doesn't actually exist in the game. It's on Reddit, it's on Discord, it's on Twitch streams. The real guilds are essentially external communities, where players help each other survive the grind. For socializers, PoE is a lonely affair, where the game's mechanics rarely encourage real camaraderie or teamwork. So, if you're looking for a meaningful connection, you maybe need to look somewhere outside the Recklast. Finally, the killers, the players who thrive on competition, on defeating opponents, and proving their dominance. Now, if you're thinking, well, PoE is a PvE game, how could there be any competition here? And you're not wrong. It doesn't offer more than bragging rights for the killers. There are technically some ways killers can find their fix. There is hardcore mode where death is permanent, which is sort of the ultimate flex for players who enjoy high stakes. And PoE does have events and races where players can compete to level up the fastest or beat certain bosses first. But even in these areas, there's a big catch. The thing is, competition in PoE is largely indirect, a test of endurance rather than direct skill. It's like running a marathon, where half of the other runners are invisible, and your biggest obstacle is a random number generator. For many killers, PoE's structure shouldn't quite deliver the thrill they're after. It's not so much about beating other players as it is about outlasting them, which might not be the kind of competitive satisfaction they're looking for. So, where does all of this leave Path of Exile? It's a game of massive complexity, a place where nearly every player type can find something to hold on to, even if half the time that something feels more like a rope fraying at both ends. For achievers, PoE offers progression, but it's buried under layers of luck. Explorers find mystery, though half of it exists outside the game itself. Socializers can connect, but usually only in the forums or on the external sites. And for killers, there is challenge, but rarely the direct, satisfying competition they might crave. In the end, Path of Exile is a game that makes you work for its rewards, and sometimes it feels like those rewards are only there to make sure you don't notice how much work you're doing and encourage you to do even more. But for the players who stick with it, PoE offers something unique. It's not always pleasant, it's rarely forgiving, but it's a game that sticks with you, one way or another.